Basic class. Basic, Scout, Legends, whatever you want to call it. It's always been pretty good, yeah? While the Beast Wars basics were pretty hit or miss, the size class really came into its own during Energon and Cybertron, with some of my favorite molds of all time coming from those assortments. It disappeared after the end of Hump for the Decepticons, with things like Power Core Combiners and Human Alliance trying to fill in the gap, but it didn't make a full return until Thrilling 30, where the newly rebranded Legends class had a widely praised renaissance. Sadly, as the Prime Wars ended and the war for Cybertron began, the Legends class went extinct once again, and was replaced with Micromasters to whom I simply can't give the time of day. I sampled them during Siege, but they weren't to my taste, so I skipped over the entirety of Earthrise's paltry offerings. Fortunately, the final act of the War for Cybertron trilogy consigned Micromasters to the ash heap of history, bringing the Legends class, now called Core class, back in full force. And what a comeback it was! Welcome to Kit Reviews. My name is Kit, and today we'll be taking a look at Transformers Kingdom Core Class RATTRAP. This figure was released in 2020 as part of Wave 1 of the Core assortment. It's been a good 8 or so years since the last time we got a round of Beast Wars updates, and those were pretty widely lauded by the fandom as far as I could tell. I thought they were good at least, though RATTRAP was the one I always felt was not up to snuff compared to the likes of Rhinox and Waspinator. He was pretty impressive, don't get me wrong, it's just that he was a lot more finicky and temperamental than the other two in my experience, and remains the one figure in my collection I still cannot remember how to transform for the life of me. That being said, it's kind of unfair to compare the two when it comes to Beast Mode. I drop logs bigger than this Rat Mode on the daily, so I'm not expecting too much as long as he looks good. And look good he does. Kingdom RATTRAP disguises himself as a very proportional approximation of the common beast of vermin we've all come to know and detest, showing a more realistic take than the more plump fuzzballs as found in Thrilling 30 and Beast Wars. The only complaint I really have with the proportions are that the hind legs are a bit too pronounced from his disease-carrying derriere, but I can easily forgive that as a sacrifice to the transformation. Also, to my knowledge, rats do not in fact have pseudo-zygodactyl rear-facing digits, but I suppose RATTRAP wouldn't be very fun in robot mode if he lacked the proper heel spurs to support him. Those feet, along with the front pair, are painted a nice fleshy pink, a color I half expected to also find on his tail, but alas. I suppose the paint budget was better spent picking out his beady black eyes with reflections pretending to be cartoony pupils, a light gray fade on his muzzle, and a small dab of that flesh tone on his quivering nose. As a mostly static object, I'd say this Rat Mode is pretty good. That's not to say he's completely immobile, his feet can, in fact, swivel about. Fun times. Part of the appeal of Prime Wars era Legends class figures were their simple but elegant transformations, and I think it's safe to say that a lot of us were expecting a return to that form when it was announced that the size class was making a return. I think it's also safe to say that RATTRAP came at a surprise when we discovered how complex he is. He's definitely more complex than some deluxe class figures I could mention, and he uses all of his mass extremely well. Somehow, RATTRAP utilizes a mostly screen-accurate transformation, which, need I remind you, involves some liberal use of mass shifting in regards to his backpack that results in a nearly perfect robot mode. It's pure plastic magic as far as I'm concerned. Show accuracy hasn't been much of a priority for the Beast Wars updates we've gotten so far in Kingdom. That's not to say they don't resemble their primitive 1990s CGI counterparts well enough, it's just that they don't strive to turn those CGI models into physical plastic toys like the Masterpiece figures do. Of course, you wouldn't know that looking at RATTRAP. Besides a certain femme fatale we'll get to in due time, RATTRAP comes the closest of the entire line to being a spitting image of his on-screen counterpart, at least to my eyes. He was one of the first figures from the line I bought, alongside the subject of my next review, and he is still the one I'm the most impressed with when I look at his robot mode. Out of the three major takes on this design, Kingdom RATTRAP is the one that manages to be the least bulky, pulling off the strong and scruffy physique that he had in the cartoon. The only major downside is the backpack, which is a problem he shares with all other RATTRAPs across the multiverse. It's very big, but at the same time it's relatively flat, and doesn't even look bad unless you're looking at him from behind. It does kind of ruin the silhouette if that's something you care about, but I look past it. RATTRAP is painted well enough in this mode, getting the major beats down, such as the silver stripes and minuscule maximal insignias on his forearms, as well as red in his eyes and mouth coupled with his silver wrinkly skull cap. In a surprising touch, even his absolutely microscopic buck teeth are painted in silver. RATTRAP comes with a sole accessory in the form of a rifle, presumably based on the one he brandished in the show, which he wields using a 3mm peg. It's cast in the same dull, earthy gray as the rest of his rat shell, which honestly suits it just fine. I prefer silver or gunmetal any day, but this particular shade of gray works well enough in keeping the finer details visible. If you don't want to display him holding it, it can snugly peg sideways into his backpack, and in beast mode it can slot into either of his hind legs. Weapon storage is weapon storage, and it is always welcome, no matter how integrated it is. Kingdom RATTRAP features 11 dedicated points of articulation, and he uses most of them to good effect. The head is a simple swivel, sadly meaning that RATTRAP can't pull any sass. His shoulders are probably the oddest choice out of the whole gamut, as the joint is set up perpendicularly to how most Transformer shoulders are. However, I haven't found it to interfere with posing in any way once you get used to it. Sadly, these shoulders don't lock in place during transformation, meaning they dislocate themselves at the slightest provocation. The legs are fairly standard. Ball joints are found at the hips, knees, and ankles, but you can easily approximate a double-jointed knee using the transformation joints, which also don't lock. For a $10 toy that's only roughly as tall as my middle finger, he's packing some impressive posability. I got Kingdom RATTRAP almost immediately after the new year, and he remains one of my favorite figures of 2021. Despite his small stature, RATTRAP showcases some remarkable complexity and powerful posing options, all while performing some black magic to turn from a realistic rat to a show-accurate sensation. He truly set a high bar for the rest of the core class to meet, and sadly has not yet been topped. This may be a little grandiose, but I think Kingdom RATTRAP is nothing less than galactic. If you liked this video or otherwise found it helpful or informative, then please subscribe for more reviews like this in the future, and feel free to suggest topics for future reviews in the comments. And if you missed it in my new advert, I have a newly public Discord server. Feel free to join as the link is in the description. When we return, we'll be taking a look at one of RATTRAP's wave mates, one who has been praised nearly as much as RATTRAP himself. Does she deserve such adulation? Find out next time. Until then, this has been Kit Katastrophe. Transform and roll out.